The November 27, 2017 meeting of the Environmental and Public Works Committee will come to order. Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Baroth. Here. Chairwoman Boyce.
Here.
Mr. Brew.
Here.
Ms. DeFlorio.
Here.
Mr. Flagler-Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Howland is excused. Mr. Marinetti.
Here.
President Daniele.
Here.
Next item on the agenda is the public forum. Is there anyone who signed up for the public forum?
There is not.
Public forum is now closed. Now, at this time, we'll have I'd like to introduce Robert Franklin, Chief Financial Officer of the Finance Department, who will present the 2018 proposed Monroe County budget as it pertains to the Environmental Public Works Committee. We will have a question and answer period following. If you want to skip the first part of it and just get right to the meat of it,
I would rather skip
certainly
the whole thing.
would gladly appreciate that. Ooh, did I just say that? So if you want to just go right to the heart of it.
Amen.
Amen.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You've seen slide number 2. Getting to the county departments most pertinent to the EPW committee are departments of aviation, and then the 4 major areas within environmental services. Just honing in on a couple things here. The budgetary increase between our engineering and facilities management adopted budget and the amended budget for 2017, big swing there, but a lot of that is due to the dissolution of M3S and Monroe New Power that occurred back in February of 17. The increase in our pure waters appropriation for 2018 is due to a number of items. Just at a high level, it includes such things like about $471,000 in personnel costs. As I've said, a good chunk of that is related to the CSEA contract settlement. Increases about $307,000 related to employee benefits. Roughly $704,000 increase in supplies and materials. Now that is primarily budgeted in Pure Water's administration, which then turns around and charges the user districts. Increase in appropriations of roughly $650,000 in contractual services and roughly $500,000 in debt service. All these increases in gross appropriations also increases their overall service chargebacks for 2018. Looking at our Department of Aviation, overall net appropriations have increased by about $947,000. That really is spread throughout the 6 divisions of the airport. Other than the increase associated with the CSE contract settlement, the most notable change I'm going to highlight is a potential. Within airport administration, we included in our 2018 request just over $370,000 in potential interest expense associated with a December borrowing for the airport revitalization project. We are still working to finalize the amount of borrowing in December. So not knowing exactly how much we want to borrow, we erred on the side of caution and threw out the maximum and calculated interest on that. So hopefully when the actual number is determined with probably this week, that number may come down. Turning to our Department of Environmental Services and specifically the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund, I do want to note solid waste operations have been improving the past couple years, generating operating income for the first time in 2015, $255,000, and an increase in its overall net position for the very first time in 2016 of about $810,000. Early indications looking at 2017 operating results seem positive. We are expecting a little more than the improvement in that position. A lot of that is related to the $1 million one-time payment we received from Waste Management upon approval of the expansion permits at Millsea. I would caution the legislature, we have a gas to energy plant, gas plant 1 we call it, where we sell certified green energy back to National Grid and RG&E. The green energy rates we have been receiving have dropped like a rock in water the past couple years. Where green energy rates have been in excess of $76, they came down to 64, down to 43. So we're heading into 2018, almost half of where the rates were just 2 to 3 years ago. The decrease in budgeted appropriations relates primarily to lower contract costs with waste management, and those relate to the City of Rochester's whole house demos and our solid waste transfer contracts. Looking at the Division of Engineering and Facilities Management, overall you see a reduction in appropriations, and of course those reductions lead to reduced service chargebacks. A couple major drivers of the reduced appropriations include about $1.6 million in lower utility costs. I've mentioned across this county you will see declines in utility budgets. Notable that the 2018 budget does not include a lease amount for the Broad & Plymouth parking lot. We had leased Broad & Plymouth and Main & Plymouth. Those parking lot lease expired, one earlier in 17 and one at the end of 2017. Also within here is our City Place building. Legislature approved the purchase of City Place. Thank you very much, because the 2018 budget had already been prepared and contemplated a reduction in rents, taxes, and maintenance costs. Also notable, and I'm just going to throw this out there because I'm sure a question may come up when you start getting into the nitty-gritty detail of the appropriations detail. There's also a change in how we're charging out our building security costs. I think I mentioned in Public Safety Committee our security contract with Securitas. Basically, it's budgeted in public safety. We take advantage of our allocation algorithms programmed in the budget system. So public safety charges security costs to DES, and then we take advantage of their allocations to blow it out to the user departments. Really, though, it had been a 4-step process. We got that down to a three-step process, but it eliminated a little bit of duplication in these appropriations and chargebacks. Looking at our Division of Pure Waters, overall increase in appropriations really due to a number of items. Once again, CSA contract settlement, it's about $471,000. Employee benefits, supplies and materials, debt service. Madam Chair, that is the last item for DES.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. Now you will entertain some questions, correct?
I will.
All right. Okay. Questions on the floor with regards to, yes, Legislator DeFlorio.
Through the chair, on page 115 under fleet services, how much revenue did Monroe County municipal fleet auction generate?
Excuse me, Legislator DeFlorio, might you use the microphone? Thank you, ma'am.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Do you need me to repeat?
If you could, for the record.
Yeah. On page 115 under fleet services, how much revenue did the Monroe County municipal fleet auction generate?
Madam Chair, I assume we're talking about the auction that was held just recently. If I can give you the rough estimate, it was like $200,000.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Flagler Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Madam Chair, to the administration, will all the airport authority debt be paid off in 2019?
Madam Chair, we're talking about those 1999 bonds, the final payment is due in 2019. Technically, we transfer the money December 31st, but the stated payment date would be January 2nd of 2019.
Okay. Okay, so that would be, through you, Madam Chair, that would be a yes, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Also, through you, Madam Chair, does the lease with the Airport Authority expire at that time as well?
Madam Chair, the lease expires 30 days after the final debt payment is made.
All right, thank you. And also, will we be abolishing the authority at that time, through you, Madam Chair?
Madam Chair, such a decision is not contemplated in the 2018 budget.
And through you, Madam Chair, when will it be contemplated?
Madam Chair, that really is up to our executive administration.
Thank you, thank you. Also, on page 79, through you, Madam Chair, why haven't the employment returned to their pre-recessive levels?
Madam Chair, is the question why has employments?
Yes.
Madam Chair, we would suggest that's a reflection of the overall regional economy.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I hear, through you, Madam Chair, I hear of people, again, going to Buffalo and Toronto to fly. Has this, again, became a problem?
Madam Chair, I'm not sure I would categorize it with the word problem. Problems assume that there's a solution. This rather is a fact we have to deal with over time. There's always bleeding to Syracuse and Buffalo, just because realistically Buffalo is a larger airport and they generate more direct flights than our small airport could possibly generate.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, to the administration, I just want to get it clear. This happens because our airport is too small?
Madam Chair, we lose passengers to Buffalo because Buffalo is a larger airport, and with larger airports, you draw additional service from the airlines. Additional service from the airlines is more direct destinations and more frequent flights to those destinations.
Thank you. On page 577, through you, Madam Chair, why does the fire rescue unit incur $400,000 of overtime expense? Are they understaffed? Through you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I can go back and look for the legislature what the overtime costs were in 2014 and 2015. I would suggest that the budgeted request for 2018 certainly brings them more in line with the 2016 actual than the 2017 amended budget contemplated. But I'm not sure what the trend is or what the story behind that is.
Okay, thank you, sir. And through you, Madam Chair, how many, do we need more full-time staff? Are we at capacity?
Madam Chair, as a department head myself, that's a dangerous question to ask.
No.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all I got for right now.
Okay, Legislator DeFlorio.
Yes, through the chair, on page 600, commitment line 504325, the Public Works contract is increasing by $475,000. Can you please expand upon why that, what's causing the increase?
Madam Chair, page 600 is within Environmental Services in our Rochester district. Increase in public works contracts primarily is related to an increase for our east side trunk sewer repair and cleaning.
Thank you.
Legislator Bra.
Madam Chair. First off, I want to say thank you all for being here. I appreciate you being here at this late hour, and I apologize for asking tons of questions because I will be. But I do find this to be invigorating exchange of information. I hope that...
We're salaried, Madam Chair. This doesn't cost a dime.
Sweet! That's awesome to hear. I like that. So I just want to do a quick follow-up on the question regarding the fire rescue unit, $400,000 in overtime expense on the line 501010. The only thing I want to point out, I did not get around to doing the backstory myself because I hang on all the budgets. I go back and I look at these things as well. But I will point out to you that the overtime expenses for that line is about 35% of the salary budget as well. And if you look at all the other units within that line, for security, admin, field ops, and custodial, it ranges from 3%, 5%, and 9%, and one gets up to 20% security for obvious reasons. What I would suggest through the chair is that, not to step on anyone's toes over there, but I suspect that given that they also have an additional line for, I forget the title of its holiday overtime hours as well, in there for just a fire rescue unit, that probably could be some additional resources put there in terms of personnel. I would just point that out.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So for the manager of that particular department, kudos to them. I gave them a nice push. Going to page 77, I had a few questions about the 2017 major accomplishments. It mentioned, obviously the first one is commencing groundbreaking on the terminal transformation project. Is that project currently on schedule?
Through you, Madam Chairwoman, yes, the project is currently on schedule. In fact, we have weekly conference calls with the designated consultant from New York State that requires us to report on progress, and we're pleased to report that not only are we on schedule, but the state has been very satisfied with the progress that we continue to make in planning for the next phases.
Thank you. Through the chair of the administration, the seventh bullet down on major accomplishments is the design and implemented the construction of facility to store the de-icing fluids from the airport. And it basically says this is done. Is that the case? Is this project complete?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, the project is complete.
Thank you. And then through the chair of the administration, and this is part of our prior conversation, this is in fact something that was we're required to do by the state regardless, but we've already done it, correct, through the chair?
Through you, Madam Chair, the project is about 2 years old. It began approximately 2 years ago. But based on our prior conversation, it was something that the Department of Environmental Conservation liked and included in the consent order.
Thank you. And then finally, through the chair of the administration, it was mentioned in that very same conversation that there was training going on to make it possible for employees at Van Leer to control when, in fact, the de-icing fluid is flowing and not flowing. So my question for you is, right now, who controls when the de-icing fluid flows or does not flow, through the chair?
Through you, Madam Chair, presently, they're able to store up to 30 days of de-icing fluids, and that training is going on presently. So we expect over the course of the next couple weeks that the operators will be able to remotely control or manually control it as necessary into the plant.
But worst case scenario, we have 30 days leeway starting now.
Through you, Madam Chair, that is correct.
Thank you so much. Moving on to the major objectives for 2018, I just have one question regarding the third one through the chair, which is renegotiating the airline use and lease agreements with air carriers. Is this all air carriers, some air carriers, or selected air carriers? And if so, how is that determined? Through the chair.
Madam Chair, we can follow up in writing with more specific details. My understanding, this is the rates and charges method, and this is us trying to negotiate the rates with signatory airlines and non-signatory airlines.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to, go ahead. You want to take it? I'll,
Through the chair?
Through the chair, I'll defer for a moment to my colleague.
Oh, sure.
Through you, Madam Chair, to the administration. I just have a question. How is our contract negotiations going with the fire rescue over in the airport? Through you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, we'd like to have a response prepared by the labor negotiating team, our HR office.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Okay, thank you very much. On page 84, this year we had two serious environmental failures. The first one was the electrical failure at the Hall of Justice, and the second one was the polluted discharge from Van Laer into Lake Ontario. Can y'all tell us what happened with that? And do we need to do any appropriations in this budget to make sure we solve them problems? I'm sorry, not on no page.
Yes, do we have a page that you're referring to in
It's
the
no
budget?
page. It's no
It
page.
isn't
We
in
had two issues that occurred this year. Sorry about that.
Chair, I would just clarify that any project to be undertaken for either of those issues likely are going to be capital related and will go through the CIP amendment process, not through a operating budget amendment.
Right, so at this time,
Nothing. All right, thank you very much.
thank you. Yes, Mr. Roth.
Hold on, the classic microphone issue.
Oh, hey, yeah, join the choir.
Okay. My apologies. Actually, I'd like to move on to environmental services as well, if I could. And if, by the way, if I'm speaking too fast, if the chair could tell me to slow down, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
I've been told before I speak too fast. So, first off, I'd like to point out on page 114 through 115 of the major accomplishments that solid waste management fulfilled, as far as I could tell, all the 2017 objectives, for which I would like to say congratulations. That's actually pretty impressive because there's some things you can't control. I appreciate that. However, I do want to ask about the engineering facilities management 2017 objectives, whether or not they were met or not. It's unclear to me that they were, because basically I have to ask about the second one, talking about the Hall of Justice components. Were the Sallyport work that we were discussing in 2017 objectives included in this? Through the chair?
Through you, Madam Chair, the Sallyport project that was referenced is presently in design.
Thank you. So through the chair of the administration, that goal has not been met yet, correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, that is correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And then in the same vein, has the county office building renovation project phase 3 HVAC been completed through the chair?
Through you, Madam Chair, no, it is not. We're awaiting funding in a future CIP.
Thank you. So we essentially, as a county, determined that something else took priority over that, correct? Through the chair?
Through you, Madam Chair, that is correct.
Thank you. Through the chair of the administration, I'm kind of wondering about the third 2017 objective of 2017, which was to continue the design of the NWQ treatment plant. Aeration improvements was not listed. It's on Pure Waters. Did that occur or not occur?
Through you, Madam Chair, that project, the contract is still open. We have advanced design, but we are deferring the construction based on other priorities within Pure Waters.
Okay. But it is fair to say that it has, in fact, continued.
Through you, Madam Chair, that is correct. It continues.
Okay, and that qualifies it. That has been done. Thank you. And then also with Pure Waters, was the construction completed for John Street, Irondequoit Bay, Scottville Road, and the Tim Pat pump station improvements completed through the chair?
Through you, Madam Chair, Tim Pad is essentially complete. The other 3 pump stations that you referenced are still in design.
Okay, so,
The design is advancing.
okay, thank you very much, but it hasn't been completed. Okay. Talking about fleet services briefly, and please bear with me, I realize it's not all number crunching. We talked about one of the major achievements was procuring the first electric vehicle from Monroe County under fleet services. How is that vehicle being utilized?
Through you, Madam Chair, that's used as really an interdepartmental vehicle for DES. Our safety manager utilizes that vehicle where he's traveling around sites to visit personnel. The vehicle is badged. We have it wrapped essentially so that it really advertises the fact of the county's green fleet and commitment to green fuel.
Thank you. And then moving on to page 116, where we list the 2018 major objectives, things that we're going to try to accomplish. Why are there no objectives associated with either the fleet services department at all? Through the chair.
Through you, Madam Chair, we certainly have objectives in 2018 for fleet, but I don't have an answer specifically as why we don't have any identified in this budget.
Thank you. Then I'd point out to the administration through the chair that I'm pretty sure there were no fleet objectives as well in 2017's budget proposal. And I didn't go back any further, but it seems to be recurring.
Through you, Madam Chair, I do recall the discussion. Typically, we'd be looking for something obviously notable in here that's measurable in terms of progress. And we may have concluded at the time of the development of the project there wasn't something, even though there's a lot going on within the division itself, that we wanted to list presently. But
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah. In addition, moving on to page 117, we're talking about department budgets as broadly speaking under revenue. I know the question around sale of energy was addressed in the presentation, so I appreciate why it's gone down. And in fact, yes, my numbers were backed up, the presentation's number. In fact, it is down by 50%, and that makes sense. But my question is regarding the Pure Water's appropriated fund balance. In the 2016 level, it appears to be, essentially going back to what was in 2016. So 2016 was about 55.5 million, then went down to 3 million, back up to 5.8 million. Could you explain what happened in 2017 that we had such a reduced amount for the appropriate fund balance?
Madam Chair, not that it's 100% intentional, but I have commented at prior meetings that I had conversations with DES Deputy Director at the time because interest borrowing rates were pretty much at all-time lows. I had asked to look for opportunities to borrow for projects and hold on to cash for a couple years in contemplation of the rates eventually rising. They're rising a little bit, Madam Chair, and that's why I say it may not always be 100% intentional, but we do try and manage our cash in the context of borrowing rates.
Okay, thank you very much. A couple more questions I'll defer after that. On page, I just want to go briefly to the solid waste management area. Under personnel services, increase from 92,000 to $255,000. Is there a new FTE coming out of this, or what is that, through the chair?
I know what?
A full-time employee FTE?
Oh,
Madam Chair, there aren't any new authorized positions per se. The Department of Environmental Services looked at its staffing and authorized positions at a department level and has moved 3 FTEs into the solid waste management. A couple of them came from engineering management, came from Pure Waters, and there was another position created due to a departmental abolish create. I can't remember exactly which division.
Thank you. So that makes sense. I was curious because on page 57, it's talked about the department's overall numbers of FTEs had actually declined by 0.5, and so one would expect to see an overall decrease. But moving from division to division, I can see how that makes sense. And then also on page 118, why are the solid waste expenses dropping about $948,000 or 6.5% in 2018?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, why are which appropriations?
The solid waste expenses, they're dropping just under $1 million, like $948,000.
Madam Chair, there's a variety of things going on in contractual services. Reductions in our commercial service expense for single stream, education and recycling. A significant reduction, over about $525,000 related to our final debt payment to NIPA. That's related to gas plant 1. Reductions related to our payment to waste management, which are expected to decline, related to declining energy sales at our gas plant. Modest reduction in utilities. And I will note some of those are offset by a slight increase in public work contracts. Those relate to a projected increase in the amount of tonnage being deposited at Millsea.
Okay, that makes sense. And then finally, in regards to waste management, on page 706, the miscellaneous revenue administration dropped by about $1.4 million, or about 19% since 2016. Why is that? I suspect it might be gas related, but I could be wrong. Page 706. I missed something. He said something.
Madam Chair, again, there's quite a number of line items going in there. Just looking at a comparison note I have, significant change from 17 to 18 related to electricity sales. Almost a $3.5 million budget in 17, going down to just about $2.4 million due to the decline in energy rates.
Thank you. So through the Trade Administration, the bulk of it would be the decline in any energy rates, you would say?
Well, Madam Chair, in 2017, the budgeted rate was $63.29 per kilowatt hour.
Yep.
That's down to like 42 or 43 bucks in the 2018 budget.
Wow.
Okay, thank you. You want to do something?
Yes, Mr. Flagler Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This time I got a real page.
Right. That's good.
On
I
page
like that.
on page 602, under the building operations, utilities. We see that the utilities are dropping by 1.6 million, and why?
Madam Chair, there's actually a couple reasons for the decline in utilities. I mentioned overall across the county a general decline in utility costs. So obviously, building services benefits from that. This building services also contemplates the solar arrays at Northwest Quadrant coming online. So you will see some contracted debt offset by lower utility costs. Madam Chair, I'm also asked to clarify that we do have solar arrays at our Gloria Drive site that should be coming online in 2018 as well.
Thank you. Also, through you, Madam Chair, on page 602, we have rental of space that's dropping as well. And can you answer why there?
Madam Chair, our rental of space, it's roughly a $624,000 decline from the 2017 budget. A lot of that is driven by savings derived from the purchase of City Place. It's about 3 months' worth of rental savings. I would also comment, we lease space over at Iron Mountain for the storage of records, and we're looking at a decrease in the lease cost there as well.
Thank you, and also through you, Madam Chair. What properties does the remaining $2,874,821 relate to? And can you please provide us with a breakdown?
Madam Chair, can you just throw that number out at me one more time? Which number are you talking about? Is it still rental of space?
Yes.
The 2.874 million?
Yes.
What does it pertain to?
Yes.
Madam Chair, these are a variety of buildings that would pertain to at least the first 9 months of City Place rent. We do lease St. Paul Street, 691 St. Paul Street. There's a commercial management, there's a contract for 8 parking spaces at the Watts Building. If you need, Madam Chair, the actual dollar amounts, we can provide that in writing before
Would
the
that be
budget
sufficient?
vote.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, please. And also on page 602, parking, is this 134,311 still rent for one of the West Main Street parking lots?
Madam Chair, it's really more I think it's called City Center parking. It's across from Sister City's garage on Fitzhugh.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions? Mr. Barrow.
As the tag team continues. Thank you for bearing with us. I had a few questions about the Environmental Services Engineering Facilities Management Divisions. I'm on page 120. I've noticed that all the budget numbers by appropriations are essentially, broadly speaking, reverting from back to the 2016 numbers. They're pretty much very similar to what they were in 2016. They went someplace in 2017, and now the 2018 budget, broadly speaking, particularly interdepartmental charges and service chargebacks, they're reflecting back to 2016 numbers. Is there a reason for that, through the chair?
Madam Chair, we'll get you a more thorough explanation prior to December's budget vote. A lot of this is related to our work order system and how we manage budgeting appropriations in DES and then charging out the actual beneficiaries of work to be done. But Madam Chair, we'll round out that explanation prior to the vote.
Thank you. And through the chair of the administration, I assume then that that's probably the similar explanation for what's going on the revenue side as well, correct?
Actually, Madam Chair, that's probably more related to what is reflected in 2 lines. One, interdepartmental charges and service chargebacks.
That makes sense. Okay. I look forward to the written description. I realize it's complicated, particularly for me. Okay, so I'm going to move on briefly. Thank you. We go to page 128. Oh, my apologies. If we go to page 126 briefly, under the industrial waste and laboratory, am I correct to assume through the chair that this does not include waste from the airport? That this has nothing to do with the airport?
Through you, Madam Chair, the airport is a permitted industrial discharger into the system, like other industrial dischargers there are, so they hold a permit to be able to discharge into the system.
Okay, so through the Chair of the Administration, what role then does the Industrial Waste Laboratory play in monitoring the discharge from the airport? Does that include essentially the de-icing fluid, is what I'm really getting at, through the Chair?
You, Madam Chair, would involve the annual sampling of their discharge. So we'd sample the discharge into the system on an annual basis.
Thank you. So that would not include de-icing fluid, correct, through the Chair?
Through you, Madam Chair, it would be a major component of the discharge.
Perhaps I'm being obtuse then. How, since the icing fluid is utilized only during the winter months, and even then only whenever it's necessary, how could annualized sampling detect when the de-icing fluid has been utilized or not, through the Chair?
Through you, Madam Chair, we would do the sampling in the winter when de-icing operations are prevalent.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you. Okay. Thank you. If we move on to page 128, under the Geographic Information Services section, looking at the performance measures, there's been very much a steady increase in the number of installs and the number of layers. If you go back further in time, which we don't have in this particular document, the numbers are even lower. It's a steady increase that continues. Do we see this trend continuing past 2018? And if so, do we see this trend as something that we can sustain over time? Because it certainly looks like this trend will continue. Through the Chair.
Through the Chair, I couldn't project too far into the future, but I would expect that the trend will continue upward. Based on advancements in technology and advancements on geographic information being made available digitally, as well as the demand for the use and its widespread use really around the county itself. So I would expect that we'll see that number to continue to trend upward.
Okay. I would agree. I just wanted, but the question then is, through the Chair, that we anticipate the county will be able to handle that trend if we were right to assume that would continue, through the Chair.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, we would be able to.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to page 131, which is the Irondequoit Bay District. I mentioned this earlier regarding objectives, and there was an appropriate answer was given that sometimes we don't have an exciting objective and doesn't make the cut. I get that. But with this one, and this happened in 2017 as well, there are no performance measures, and that, I think, is a little bit more problematic. I mean, for the other districts, we actually do have performance measures. We know what they're doing. We know if they're improving or not improving or sustaining or whatever. But with this district, we do not. Is there a reason why there are no performance measures associated with this district?
Through you, Madam Chair, my guess is this is maybe more of a historical trend that the other three districts have performance measures. GCO, because we manage a local collection system, Rochester the same, as well as we have a treatment plant in Northwest because we have a treatment plant. It doesn't mean we shouldn't consider objectives. Obviously we do as we manage that district, but some that would be noteworthy, and we will consider that for next year.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And then moving on to the Rochester District, on page 132, is it possible that we could actually get a breakdown of what the other revenue is? It's about $4 million worth of other revenue. And what is that?
We can
Yeah.
provide additional detail for that line item.
Thank you, appreciate that. And then on 134, in terms of performance measures, I'm particularly interested in the percentage of storm flow provided secondary treatment stat under other at the very end on page 134, because we had a less success, let's say, in 2017 And my question is, what is it that causes us to anticipate an increase to 88% of storm flow being provided secondary treatment? Why do we expect that to improve, through the chair?
Through you, Madam Chair, typically our 2018 estimate is based on a 3-year average, so we're really taking into consideration 3 years of data to develop the estimate for 18.
Thank you. Through the chair of the administration, that's a method that you've utilized in past years as well, correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, that is correct.
Okay. Appreciate that as well. On page 602, I have a question, because something odd occurred.
602.
And while my colleague actually discussed this regarding the building operations, but the question is, there's a line item there, professional services, 504320, which has a history going back to being in the 2016 and 2017 budgets. However, when I looked at the 2017 budget proposal, that line item did not exist, neither a name nor a number. Can we have an explanation of how this happened?
Madam Chair, just to clarify, it was not in the 2017 adopted?
It was not in the 2017 budget proposal. And no amendments were made to that, so I would assume that'd be part of the adopted as well, yes.
Madam Chair, a lot of this pertains to DES taking over the contract with Siemens to operate our cogen facility at Iola. That was previously handled by Monroe New Power. We did amend the 2017 budget when Monroe New Power dissolved, and the cost of that contract came over to DES. We also, and that's predominantly, I mean, that's $1.4 million. There's another 81 grand in here that's going to relate to a contracted service at Frontier Field.
Thank you. Well, through the chair of the administration, if you could provide me with what the appropriate number used to be and where it was located on the 2017 budget so I could compare them, I'd appreciate that. Is that possible? Is that one of those difficult things to do through the chair?
Madam Chair, when Monroe New Power was in existence, they paid the contract for Siemens, so we wouldn't have that in our budget. What we would have instead is a contracted payment to Monroe New Power.
Okay, I see.
I'm commercial, well, yeah, I'm not going to find it right here, Madam Chair.
Would you allow him to get it to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite happy to accept a brief explanation in writing later on. I mean, it was just,
Okay.
it was very odd. Is that okay with the administration?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I missed
I
that
know.
last thing you said.
No, yeah, we've agreed that you could get to him, the information to him.
Certainly.
Yeah, I think I understand the explanation, but it's the sort of thing that if it's not in writing, I'm never going to remember it correctly through the chair. Okay, and I'd like to go to page 713 if I could. And I apologize for the bouncing around nature of this. I have it all on paper.
Okay, I've done it.
Yeah. So on page 713, the account 410205, which is miscellaneous revenue of $603,000. Could I have an explanation of what that is?
The 2018 budget request would include reduction in Civic Center electric and surface lot reimbursements. The budget also includes quarterly reimbursements at Frontier Field, however.
And how much of that would be quarterly reimbursement to Frontier Field through the chair?
Madam Chair, I can get you that detail in writing.
Okay, I'd appreciate that. And it's related, and I assume this is the same thing. Is that essentially what the rent would be from budget, what we're going to budget for the rent from Frontier Field in 2018 through the chair?
Madam Chair, actually, the rent from Frontier Field, are you referring to what's been discussed in the media about $100,000 in rent?
No, actually I'm not, but, okay.
But Madam Chair, I need to clarify, what rent are you referring to?
Well, essentially, I know we actually do get some funds from Frontier Field, and I was wondering where that was located in the budget. I assumed it was located in this line. I could be wrong.
So Frontier, Madam Chair, Frontier Field as a facility is accounted for in our building. It's like the same as COB as a building. So it's accounted for in building operations. It's within this section of building operations, revenues, appropriations. You'll see revenues of hotel motel tax. You'll see miscellaneous revenues. So part of that $603,000 in miscellaneous revenues would include revenue sharing from advertising, revenue sharing from parking.
I would very much appreciate them, through the chair, if you could get that to me in writing in terms of the breakdown of that revenue sharing and the other aspects of that amount of money, if that's okay.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much.
All right.
And on this, on a very much related note, with account number 412,000, transfer from general fund. This includes $300,000 for Frontier Field, correct?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, is this then the amount that we expect to be the bottom line expense that we're going to incur next year from Frontier Field?
Yes, Madam Chair. The difference between our budgeted expenses and our budgeted revenues requires a transfer, and it's about $300,000.
Okay, and this is after Frontier Field is receiving hotel motel taxes, correct?
Yes, Madam Chair.
And that amount is $700,000, correct?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay. Is Frontier Field now its own internal service fund in the county's accounting system?
No, Madam Chair. The internal service fund encompasses all of our buildings.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cost center.
Okay, so that and many others, through the chair.
Yes, there are a number of buildings within building operations.
Thank you. And then finally, I think I have a final question here. And I do not. Sorry, I decided it's not worth it. You're welcome all.
You're all set?
I'm done.
Perfect. All right. I do have one question as the chair with regards to, on page 116, under engineering facilities management. Is there a date of completion for the construction of the Seneca Park Zoo improvements phase 1?
Madam Chair, we're looking at late summer or early fall.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any further questions? Oh, come on.
I know.
All right, Mr. Barras, just because I like you.
You drew me to a page that I went to, and I realized, I didn't ask a question.
All right.
So through the chair of the administration, I promise, this is the last question minus any sort of follow-ups that might occur, is under the Pure Waters 2018 major objectives, why are there no major objectives associated with the Van Laer plant?
Through you, Madam Chair, that'll be a subject in a referral that we'll be discussing here shortly.
Okay, it might be an objective for 2018 is all I'm saying, but okay. Might be nice to add it in. All right, thank you. I'm done.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, I didn't mean to be facetious on there. No, really, obviously, our focus is on the plant's compliance and resolving that. But
Yes.
Let me to the page. What is it?
Okay.
If I may expand on that just a little bit further. Let me get there.
Yeah, when we get to that referral, that would be great. All right, moving on to
Okay.
new business.
There was, we do have the renovation of the operations center. Well, that was in 17, and that's ongoing, and we will complete that into 2018, although it's not listed there at Van Laer. And we also will complete the thickeners project. Again, not listed. Well, we do. We do have the renovation of the operations center, which is at Van Laer, listed under Pure Waters.
Okay, that's fair enough.
I'm sorry, I thought we were on to new business. Who's running the show? All right. Mr. Clerk, new business.
To approve the minutes.
Oh, I have to approve the minutes. Oh, okay, I apologize. The minutes from the September 25th, 2017 committee are before you, and if there are no objectives, they'll move forward unless anybody gets to the clerk before the end of the day, which is probably in about 3 hours. So, without further ado, new business.
Referral 17-0311.
Moved by legislator Brew, seconded by legislator DeFlorio. Questions? Legislator DeFlorio.
Excuse me, through the chair, can we please get a brief sort of description of how we got to this point? Through
Yes.
the chair.
Please, Mr. Garland.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on the,
You're on the wrong one?
yeah, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
All right. Yes, hold that thought, Mr. Barat.
Thank you. We're on 311, correct?
Yes, we are.
Thank you. Just one quick question. Through the chair of the administration, who provides these services currently?
Madam Chair, Clean Harbors.
They are the current ones. Thank you very much.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Next item on the agenda.
Referral 17-0313, authorize and order.
Moved by legislator DeFlorio, seconded by legislator Marionetti. And legislator DeFlorio. Now you may ask your question.
Through the chair, can we get a brief description of how we got to this point?
Sure. Through you, Madam Chair, as you know, and as I've reported to your honorable body, we have had challenges with our aeration system. That was a major upgrade to our Van Laer treatment process. It's the biological process, really the heart and soul of the plant. That was a multi-year phase construction, not unlike performing open heart surgery to the plant. We had to keep the plant running while we were doing the upgrade. The construction itself began in 2011, but the planning for this began well over 10 years ago, and it's part of our upgrades, our capital upgrades for the plant to ensure the integrity and reliability of our treatment processes. During the construction, we began to experience challenges as related to poor and inconsistent system performance, primarily with settling. Some of those challenges began in 2014, 15, and into 16, and to a certain extent into 17. But that's really where we are. It's associated with this capital improvement and impacts on our ability to achieve proper settling.
Thank you.
Yes.
Follow up to that then. Are we confident that the county's actions and their work with DEC are moving us then in the right direction moving forward?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, I am confident, and success isn't optional. We've got to fix this, and we will.
Thank you.
Thank you. Legislator Barat.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I need to note that I'm a member of the Board of the Soil and Water Conservation for Monroe County, and so just letting you know. The other thing, I have one question, and most of my questions actually answered earlier, and so I very much appreciate the administration taking the time to fill us in. But there's a line in the third paragraph that says, recent activities have begun to improve, and it ends with, these activities take time to evaluate and implement and are expected to continue into 2018. My question is, how far into 2018 do we expect that to continue? Through the chair.
Through you, Madam Chair, there's a number of activities are underway. One in particular is a scale version of the plant, 1 to 10,000 scale version. So we have essentially a bench scale version of the plant where we can test different hydraulic and mixing scenarios. We expect that testing to go into the first quarter of 2018, which will help us develop a path forward and develop a solution to the challenges we're facing. We have an obligation under the consent order to report that to the DEC in April, and that was really a date that we had determined would work, and the DEC accepted that.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? All in favor indicate, if there are no further questions, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes. Next item on the agenda.
Referral 17-0316.
Moved by legislator Marinetti, seconded by President Daniele. Questions? Yes, Mr. Broth.
Thank you. Through the chair of the administration, when this coalition is formed, will the coalition itself be responsible for the publishing the watershed management plan or any other educational aspects for the public through the chair?
Through you, Madam Chair, the county will not be responsible for those publications.
That's what I want to know. And through the chair of the administration, will the county, either ours, Genesee, or Orleans, be expected to invest financially in order to meet any sort of regulatory requirements pertaining to water quality through the chair?
Madam Chair, the counties that are party to this agreement do not have a financial obligation to participate.
Thank you. And then finally, through the chair, has any grant funding been acquired or is going to be sought for this coalition through the chair?
Through you, Madam Chair, the coalition has been successful over several years in securing grant funding. I can't speak what they've secured recently. I believe the most recent may have been back in 2008, where they secured a $75,000 grant to help complete the Black Creek Watershed Management Plan.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any further questions? If there are none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item passes. Next item on the agenda is new business. There being no new business at this time. Do you have any new business? Oh, okay, good. Thank you, appreciate that. There's no other new business. The Environmental Public Works Committee will come, I can't even, at this point, we'll come to an end. Our next committee meeting will be December 18th. Thank you.